Hello, this is Rumor. Thank you so much if you're joining me here today. I am here to share with you some of the decks that I have been working with so far during spooky season. I admittedly neglected my tarot practice a great deal over the summer. Not that I wasn't doing readings with my tarot and oracle decks, but just not so many. I guess life got busy and I just wasn't really feeling it as much. But as the daylight shortens, the leaves start to fall from the trees, we start to see the initiation of the decay into autumn that will take us through the winter, a time of going within, where I see the summer as being very much a time of being out and about and vibrant. I guess I'm feeling more that need for self-reflection and just, get a little introspective. So there are a few different practices that I have been doing for about the last month, and I would like to share those with you as well in conjunction with the spooky decks that I am using with them. So let's get started. I will start this off with a daily practice that I kicked off a few weeks ago. It all began with finding this journal right here several weeks ago when I was in Paris, and I just thought it was adorable that Wednesday was called Mercredi because, of course, that's French for Wednesday. And I enjoyed the show Wednesday. I love anything Tim Burton, really. I will say, as far as this show goes, I enjoy it. I have seen the second season. I even binged the first season all over again because after 3 freaking years, I could hardly remember anything that happened. So, I mean, that's a gripe I have with the show, first of all. 3 years to wait for the next season after it was such a breakaway success. I do appreciate that perhaps scheduling conflicts got in the way. The production quality of it, I'm sure, takes a lot of time, especially when season 2 treated us to a very old school Tim Burton stop motion sequence for the backstory on a character that was introduced in season 2. And I just loved that. There's also the fact that Beetlejuice, the movie, came out last year, so perhaps they were busy with that, also starring Jenna Ortega. So it's like, I get it, but still, 3 years, long time. Middle-aged brain, could not remember season 1, binged season 2, and honestly, overall, I'm like, I enjoy it. I don't know that it warrants all the hype that surrounds it, but I do like it. It's a cozy show. It's a spooky show. Anyway, back to this. I was so tickled by Mercredi that I decided to buy this journal, and to flip through, you can see here where we have ruled pages for each of the days, and this lends itself very well for journaling. So I got it in Minagin that I would use this as a tarot journal, and specifically that I would use this little mini deck with it because it's very easy to tote around with this wherever I might find myself. The deck being the mini Bohemian Gothic Tarot. I felt like that fit the vibe of Wednesday very well. The images look like they could be at Nevermore Academy. And I decided to pull a card a day then for shadow work, in conjunction with this little crystal that a friend recently gave me, because look, it's a rose quartz cobra, because she knows that this is my personal year of the snake, and the snake energy of transformation and shedding what's not serving me is really key to my personal practice this year. So I thought this whole thing would be a wonderful supplement to that. So he lives in the pouch with this deck as I journal this card pull a day. You can see how this deck is very atmospheric. I find it beautiful. I find it delightful, even in its darkness. So I have been loving this card a day practice because that's not something I've typically done. Definitely not with the discipline of attempting to do it for an entire year. So far, so good. Sometimes I do miss a day or two and I will pull cards in retrospect, and it's still valuable for reflection and sometimes with the benefit of hindsight to see how it applied to a certain day. And ooh, this reminds me of what I didn't see in Paris and I need to remember when I go back. The catacombs. I would love to go see those catacombs. Next is another day-to-day sort of practice, not something that I'm doing every day, but one of the quick readings that I will do on a more everyday, mundane kind of basis, if I'm just looking for a message for that day, not exploring shadow necessarily, could relate more to the practicalities of my day, really just feeding into my whimsies at any given time. And for this, I'm also only pulling one card, but from two decks in conjunction with each other. And of course, sometimes I'll make an exception and maybe I'll draw two cards from a tarot deck to elaborate on a central oracle card message. This being my pouch for my autumnal Seasons of the Witch decks. And so for that, we start with Maven. And as I've shared before, the deck that I like to pair with this one is the Raven's Prophecy Tarot. As is usually said when anyone speaks of the Raven Prophecy, because it must be said, it is not a Halloween deck. It is based on a series, The Raven Boys, which is a paranormal series, which is wonderful to read around Halloween, and that's when I have done so. And then you've got the predominantly black backgrounds of the cards with this orange border, but the orange border is actually symbolic of something in the book, and everything that's depicted in the images are things in the book as well. But it is just one that nonetheless, with the coloration of it, and I think just the atmosphere of the stories themselves, if you've ever read them, really lends itself well to this season. And so, of course, it's just going to fit so well with the themes of the Maven Oracle and the colors that are used throughout this as well. If you have the Seasons of the Witch Oracle series, you'll know how the color palette does shift with the seasons as we usually see it in nature as well. So coming off the brighter summer decks of Litha and Lammas, we're getting more muted, more orangey, rusty, reddish tones here. So let me just show some more cards. And as you can see, they just complement each other so beautifully. And I love seeing this bird's nest as we have a bird on the table right here. Page of Cups paired with tea magic. Reach into your subconscious, pull from the source, and weave magic with intention, and the answers will unfold. And that seems like such an appropriate message for Page of Cups energy, going really intuitive, diving into that watery realm and setting intention. The page is just starting out on their journey, right? So how lovely is that? And it is just magical. And now Knight of Cups with Crow. Pay close attention to the winds. There's a message making its way. Okay, so if we've already set our intention and we're starting to take some action on it, again, very intuitive, which would also fall within this Cups realm. And it's a white feather versus these black crows that we see here, but still feels like something that one of these birds has shed nonetheless. And it's like the magic of it that has illuminated into this pure white as a sign for us to follow. And that's what we're being asked to tap into here. And wow, we're really in the Cups realm over here. But once again, it's a wonderful pairing. And I swear I did not put these in any sort of order. These are legit just coming up as they come up. Pumpkin spice and apple cider. Nothing is more nostalgic than the joy of belonging in your presence. And we've got all those things that bring that feeling of nostalgia this time of year. If you live in a location that has the stereotypical autumn with the cooling temperatures, the breezes, the falling leaves, it is just such a cozy place to be inside with the candles lit, cupping a hot cup of cider or the infamous PSL. And again, seeing this birdie show up right here, how nice. And Six of Cups is just all about nostalgia to me. And I really love it. And how this bird is watching the bubbles blowing as she's watching the leaves. They're just lovely, like, visual similarities. But again, thematically, I think that these pair very nicely. So anyways, I'll stop with this. But I do really enjoy this pairing. And I recommend it if you have these decks and you haven't tried it. Another pairing that I have been absolutely loving so far is the Unfinished Business Tarot with the Beloved Dead Oracle. Now, whereas the previous cards I shared are over at my desk, again, just for sort of day-to-day readings as I'm feeling like it, very brief. These are the decks that I'm using over here at my tarot table when I want to dive a bit deeper in something and I want to do actual full spreads and be able to leave those out over the course of a few days even to stop back and continue to reflect on, even after journaling my initial impressions. There's always something else that can pop out later. So anyways, I spoke of these decks in my last video, the Seance Circle spread, and this is what inspired that idea actually, because both of these decks deal with the spirit realm. They depict people who are deceased, but coming back in spirit to relay messages that we need to hear so that we can learn our lessons in this life. And how I have found myself approaching these readings so far is, and even these readings aren't that much more elaborate. I've taken to just doing one from the Oracle and then a 3-card pull from the tarot. But there's so much to take in with it. And because the questions that I'm asking are diving deeper, that's where these are the sorts of readings that just become more comprehensive in nature, because the Beloved Dead has a great guidebook where you get at least a page-long entry for each card. And the idea of it is that you are inviting in an ancestor to come and sit on the spirit throne, to embark on this discussion with you. And when I pair it with the Unfinished Business Tarot, it then feels like this ancestor is bringing in a team of other spirits who can also speak to the message that they're trying to impart to me. Now, where guidebooks go for that deck, and apologies in advance, because after I made my last video and was looking for a link to where to find this deck to put in my description, I think it might be out of print. It looks like MJ Cullinane was selling a mini deck of this, which is sold out. So it's possible that that might come back in stock, but I'm not sure if she still intends to sell the full-size deck or not, which probably wouldn't be the worst for a lot of people because they do tend to be larger decks. You can see, you know, relative to my hand, that's quite a handful. So I don't know about that. So I apologize showing a deck that isn't readily accessible, because I'm about to talk it up for a little bit here because I really, really love it. This is the guidebook that came with my copy of the deck. It's about the same size as the cards. Nice and thick though. It's got decent length descriptions in there. But then what I also bought with this, it's supposed to be the actual journal of the spiritual medium who is communicating with the spirits in the deck. And, you know, it's fun, like with the Post-it notes here. MJ has some of her own notes scattered throughout too. And it's like this Valdis, I think is the name of the psychic, Valdis Goma. You have this font where she has added some notes after the fact. The majority of them are typed up like this. And you might find some other like ephemera tucked in here, newspaper articles and so forth. And, you know, it's annotated. So it's like after the fact, Valdez might have added notes. And then MJ, having come upon this journal, then will add some of her own thoughts in it as she reflects on the characteristics of these different spirits coming through, which of course are characteristics that coincide with their respective tarot card. It is incredibly clever what MJ, quote unquote, Valdez has set up here. Really fleshes out these people. No pun intended, considering they're dead, they're spirits, but it does flesh them out into who they were as the living and explains the circumstances that led to their deaths. And these lengthier handwritten notes that are offered are each commentary on the other spirits in the deck that strengthen or weaken any given spirit who might be reaching out to you. So it's a very clever way of presenting that idea of tarot card pairings when you're looking at a spread and looking at cards, not just unto themselves and their individual spread positions, but in relation to each other, and letting the groupings of them offer some context. If you see a certain card next to another one, it can have that effect of strengthening or weakening the message, presenting it more in light or more in shadow. And the way she speaks to it in terms of all of these people, like, for example, Tamara's presence brings an air of celebration and communal joy. Her stability and festivity resonated with Ian's desire for emotional expression and connection. Together, they created an atmosphere that allows us to celebrate every small achievement and express our emotions wholeheartedly. So in this case, Ian is the Page of Cups in this deck. The Page of Cups showing up for us again. And then let's see, Tamara is the Four of Wands. So if you were to see the Page of Cups beside the Four of Wands, that is the effect that the Wands has on the cups in that reading. And again, putting it in terms of the people, it really does humanize it. It really makes it accessible and relatable. And so I just find myself not wanting to do a huge spread with this deck because I want to be able to read these full entries, you know, and just really pour over it and think it through. And I really feel like the process has helped to enhance these readings. Got the Queen of Cups here with the Six of Wands and the Hierophant. So for each of these cards, you get the backstory on the people depicted and the energies. And again, those energies that will complement or hinder them perhaps. And so I would be looking at this in the context of absence. I eventually started to take this beyond just a pairing though, because it occurred to me that this oracle deck would be a nice complement to such readings as well. And this is the Roses, Dust, and Ashes oracle by the same creator as the Rhythm and Soul Tarot, Southern Gothic oracle, Southern Botanical oracle. Love all of those decks very much. And this includes Stacy's lovely artwork, but with a different spin. So here's what the backs look like. And here's an example of one of the cards. And this image actually kind of gives me chills because I don't know if you've heard me talk about my beloved Brompton Cemetery, one of the magnificent 7 Victorian cemeteries here in London. Absolute favorite place of mine over here. And there is a statue, that's actually a headstone that I used to sit by all the time when I lived near there, that looked a lot like this. And the key word that we see associated with this one is grace. Let's look to the guidebook and see what it says about that. So here's the guidebook. And for grace, it says, in philosophy, grace refers to a sense of beauty, elegance, or harmony that is present in the natural world or in human experience. Grace is often associated with qualities such as balance, symmetry, and proportion, and it is seen as a manifestation of order and beauty in the universe. Overall, the nature of grace in Christianity is one of unmerited favor, love, and mercy from God towards humanity. It is through grace that Christians believe that they can receive salvation and forgiveness. This is why the angel is a profound symbol, because he or she represents an extension of God's favor. When you draw this card, think of ways that you are being called to open your heart to difficult situations. By embodying humility, kindness, and compassion, you can cultivate a sense of grace in your interaction with others. So just a sample of how this guidebook can read. I haven't interpreted what the rest of the spread could possibly mean, but again, I might drop this in, just one card from this oracle, as a final punctuating note to follow this reading. So starting with the Beloved Dead oracle to set the theme, and then getting to the heart of it by bringing in the other spirits of the Unfinished Business tarot, and then allowing the roses, dust, and ashes to provide that last note that perhaps ties everything together. It's pretty, right? I like it a lot. And so that'll do it for the decks that I am currently working with during spooky season. There may be some turnover here going deeper into October and towards Halloween, but this is where my practice stands right now, and I would love to hear from you what decks you have pulled out for this time of year. What are your favorites? What are your current practices? Please let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for joining me here today. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.